My boss refused to give me a raise for years as he was using my work for his promotion. So now, I got my own license and now I'm his boss. Hi, my name is Jacob, and I want to share some parts of my life with you. So far, I have learned that life is unfair, but it is harder for some people than it is for others. Unfortunately, I have always faced the cruel side of it. It has never been easy for me in any way. In my early childhood, things were normal in my life, or at least to me they were normal. I am sure there must have been financial problems in those days too, but my parents never disclosed them to me. They tried to shield me from every bad thing. Like every normal child, I lived inside my own bubble where nothing could go wrong. However, as I started to grow up, the reality began to get clearer. I could see that my dad was working really hard to meet all expenses. All I wanted was to grow up to be able to earn money and give rest to my parents. I began to work part-time to be able to afford my expenses, and I tried to contribute to the house too. Just before I graduated, my dad had a road accident. He was going somewhere on his bike, but he got hit by a van. After that accident, my dad became paralyzed, so he was unable to continue his job. The entire responsibility of the house fell on my shoulders. After I graduated, I got a job as a real estate agent. Luckily, I had a knack for it, so it was not that hard for me. However, the only problem in my life consists of my boss. I am well aware of the fact that employees seldom love their bosses. However, my boss really makes my life hell. At first, I assumed it was the normal thing. However, with the passage of time, I started to realize that he had some problems with me in particular. He was not that harsh with the rest of my colleagues. He constantly makes me work overtime with no pay for the extra hours that I put in. There is no guarantee about my weekends as he can email me some task at any time of the day, and he gets mad if I do not respond or delay it. He often makes me redo a lot of sales. I know I work really hard and I do not have a problem with it, but it is getting too much of a problem now. From the day that I started to compare it with my coworkers, my mind kept getting more distressed. I am desperate and I cannot quit this job because things at home are not good, and quitting the job would only make everything a lot harder. I don't even know if I would be able to find another job. I have been asking my boss for a raise for a very long time now. It has been 10 years since I started working here, right after I graduated. I did get an increment about 5 years ago, however, with inflation, there is nearly nothing now. My promotion has been due since the past year. Every time my boss brings some new excuse for delaying it. Last week marked a decade at this dead-end job. I had a huge mental breakdown because it really hit me that I was just wasting my time and energy. My work and all of my extra efforts go unacknowledged. I am working more than I should. Perhaps I've been so busy working that I never got the time to realize that I am wasting myself. I have no personal life. Every relationship that I step into just ends because I'm unable to pay heed to it. I just do not have time for myself or anyone else. It has started to make me anxious that I have achieved nothing in my life. I don't want to stay like this forever. It breaks my heart that I am really good at what I do, yet I am unable to grow in my field. After the recent breakdown, I am having a hard time coping with these things. I am really struggling, so I finally decided to seek help. I cannot even afford therapy, but fortunately, I have some old school friends in the field, and one of them agreed to help me and refused to charge me. The therapy sessions have proven to be alright so far. They help me process a lot of things, but I know that none of it is going to help for long until I solve the root of all these problems. It may sound weird to the readers, but I have never had any friends at my workplace. I have always been so swamped with work that I never found the time to interact with anyone beyond the office work. Recently, I interacted with a coworker, She came to me to ask for some information, and she never stopped talking. Her name is Emma. The most noticeable trait about Emma is that she talks a lot. However, she is one of those rare people who do not talk crap, even if they talk a lot. Every conversation with her seems meaningful and fulfilling. She is very talented, and she is on the management team. I never really asked her to become my friend, and I'm not sure how that happened, but Emma just started dropping at my desk every morning and she began to call me her friend. I did not mind her. With time, Emma figured out my story as she was very observant, and she began to ask the same questions that I had regarding my position in the company. Emma said that there was no way that someone like me was in such a low position. It was very weird. She told me that she would get to the bottom of this. I told her that there was no need to become a detective on my behalf, but Emma said that she was too concerned and curious not to do that. I'm hoping that she will find out the reason behind my extremely poor treatment by my boss in the company. I hope it would be something that I could possibly work on so this torture would end. Comments. At Delilah4. Hey, I have read your account and I sympathize with you. All of us have had a fair share of horrible bosses, but your story just seems really bad. I sincerely hope that things get better for you. But I need to let you know that it is useless to sit around hoping for something to change. I would strongly suggest you take a stand for yourself in front of your boss. He is exploiting all your hard work, and that is unfair. If you don't speak up, you might be stuck in this hellhole forever. Besides that, keep looking for another job. You mentioned that you have a real talent as a real estate agent. I am sure that some other company would be glad to hire you. Best of luck in the future, and think about the suggestions that I have given you. At Brad. Hi Jacob. I can totally relate to your scenario because I have been in a similar situation in my life. The last job that I worked at was awfully similar to yours. I felt like I was completely drained, and I was getting nothing in return. I stayed there for 3 years, and then one day, I quit because I had had enough. However, considering your financial problems at home, it is wise not to just quit your job without having a good backup. I would suggest that you get help from your friend Emma. The management seems to know everything about the employees. She would be able to get to the bottom of this matter, and you might get to know the reason for your situation in your job and your relationship with your boss. You will get out of this, so don't worry. Stay strong and just focus on your next decision. Update 1. Hey, I just wanted to update you guys on what happened next in my story. I told you about things at work with my boss and that he refuses to give me a raise. That did not change. I am still being made to work like a donkey whilst I get the minimum pay for it. Emma had set out to figure out the reason behind my boss's behavior with me. It would be shocking to let you all know that Emma was going through some documents about the recent sales when she unexpectedly found out that my most recent sale was under the name of my boss, and there was no mention of me on the documents. She found it very strange, so she immediately came to me and told me about it. I was shocked too, because that was not the way it was supposed to be documented at all. I wondered why my boss had not mentioned me over there. Both of us could not think of any reason. I asked Emma to do a little digging and take out the records of all my previous sales to make sure that my boss had not been doing it with the rest of my sales too. Emma came to me after 2 days, and it did not shock me to know that the same was the case with all the other documents too. My boss had been acting like a vulture. All this time, he had been taking the entire credit for my sales and had been snatching the fruit of my labor. This was the reason that he never got me promoted. He had stepped on me, and I had been getting used to it at his hands for the last 10 years. It took me a while to process this information. I have always hated him, but I had never thought this low about him. He turned out to be the cheapest and most evil person. He had made my life so miserable, and he had been doing that intentionally. Emma consoled me and said that there was no use of confronting him now, as there was nothing that could be done. I would never be able to claim and prove that all those sales were actually mine and that the boss had just taken credit for them. Everyone believed the documents, and I would end up getting fired. I know that I need to quit this job straight away. I am confident that I will make it no matter what I do next. I know I have a talent in this field, and I'm confident that no one can stop me from achieving great things. I have been depressed for the past few weeks, but I feel better and really satisfied now. I did brood about it, but now I'm grateful that at least I found out the truth. What if I had never found out about it and might have spent my entire life here? I am hopeful about my future, and that is the only thing I have my eyes on now. I am going to move past this obstacle. It's such a shock to see that OP's boss did something like this to OP, but I am not really surprised because most of the bosses in the corporate world are like that. They believe in taking credit for their employee's success, but the employee may never have agreed to that. They all know at all types, but I doubt they know anything about how miserable they make their employees. And honestly, OP is one of those unlucky ones out here exploited at the hands of his boss. What do you think OP should do now? Update 2. Hi, here's what happened next in my story. After I found out the reality about my boss and the fraud that he was, I thought a lot and finally made my decision. I decided to quit my job. Deep down, I had a slight fear about the consequences and the fear of not earning, but the self-confidence overshadowed the fear. It was that one risk that I finally had the courage to take. It was better than being used by a jerk my whole life. I wrote my resignation letter, and I made sure that no one would get the slightest hint about the real reason for quitting my job. I only had my eyes on my future success and my revenge, and I was not going to let anything get in the way of it. The doubts that had been in my head for the past years about not being good enough just vanished as reality unfolded in front of me. My boss was really shocked at my resignation. He called me to his office and asked me why I had taken this decision. I just told him that I wanted to try something different and that I would not do it if I did not quit this job. My boss tried to scare me into staying by telling me that I was taking a huge risk. I would not get this job back, and it is not easy to do it on your own. I told him that I had considered all the risks before making my decision, and it was final. As per the company policy, I was given a farewell, and all my colleagues were present at that party. I was not expecting any sort of goodness from my boss, but he acted like the biggest jerk at the farewell party. He gets on stage, and usually he is supposed to say some nice words to the employee who is leaving. He did the opposite of it. He passed such humiliating remarks about me disguised in the form of jokes. He called me a failure who was insecure about himself, as I had seen my juniors perform better than me. At the end of his speech, he just covered it all up by wishing me the best of luck in my future endeavors. I was really hurt and more angered by it. He is just a complete jerk. There is not a single thing that is good about him. He had been using me for his own promotion, and now he humiliated me in front of the entire company and called me a failure. That fueled me even more for revenge. I was not going to let him go. I'm going to make sure that I turn his life into hell. I will make him pay for everything he has done to me. Emma came up to me to console me after that horrible speech. I assured her that I was fine and that I was just looking forward to making him pay for it. Emma motivated me more and reminded me that she was there for me if I needed some sort of help in it. I told my parents about my resignation. They are worried, of course. My mom told me that I should have looked for another job first, but I assured her that I was not scared and that I believed in myself. Hearing this, my parents also became my support system and told me that everything would fall into place as long as I kept believing in myself. I am glad that they took that well and are supporting me in it. OMG, this is the height of toxicity. I mean, OP's boss is such a jerk. There's a different punishment for people like him in hell. LOL. That man had the audacity to humiliate OP while knowing how much he had gained from using OP all those years. I'm sure OP will find the most suitable place for himself because he's talented, unlike his boss, who is like most of the bosses out there. LOL. Update 3. Hi, I left my job. It has not been easy since then. I had to struggle a lot financially and emotionally. The best parts was that my mom and dad were there to support me. Mom had her savings and she took care of the house while I was struggling with the new setting. I began to work as a private real estate agent and it was going surprisingly well. I made a lot of sales and a lot of companies were trying to hire me. However, I stayed private and did not attach myself to any company permanently. I had learned my lesson from that last job and I was not going to let that happen again. I would never let anyone steal my hard work again. Within a few months, I was able to grow a lot. One day, I was sitting in my room and I was reminiscing. I was so overwhelmed by the fact that it was how things were supposed to be. I had deserved all of this, but I had been deprived of it because of my boss. I was meant to achieve all of it, yet I had been in such a miserable state for the past 10 years. I began to cry, as it was just really emotional for me. My mom walked into my room and saw my eyes filled with tears. She got really worried and asked if everything was all right. I smiled and assured her that it was all good. I had just gotten overwhelmed by everything. She hugged me and told me that fate does not let us have whatever we want and whenever we want. She reminded me that a lot of things are predestined and they happen when the time is right. My mother's words made me feel a lot better as I realized that I need to be grateful instead of dwelling on my previous miseries and hardships. Emma is that one friend who has stood by me since then. She has been telling me about things at the company that I used to work at. Within the last few months, the company had been suffering a lot because of the man's negligence. He had been dependent on a few people like me and got everything done by us. After my resignation, most of them resigned too, as they could see their future. My ex-boss was unable to handle everything with the resignation of the few people that he had become completely dependent on. Emma told me that the company was in a really bad state. That gave me an idea for the perfect plan. Last month, I got my own license. I have enough money on me now that I can start my own real estate company. But I have an even better plan. I have decided to buy the company where I used to work. I know its condition is not good, but that is only because my ex-boss's inability and laziness. If I buy the company, I will make sure that things get well. I have enough trust in myself that with the right team of people, I can do it. I talked to Emma about the plan and she was excited and overjoyed about it. She said that it sounded perfect, as it would cost me less to buy that company, and I could work on it. It would place me in a position to dictate my ex-boss however I wanted to, and I could seek the revenge that I had been craving. I have started to negotiate with the owner, and I feel that things are going to go in my favor. Update 4. Hi. As I have already told you, I have decided to buy the company that I was used to working for. I got the deal done and became the owner of the company. The day that it was announced, my boss was among the employees and his mouth dropped open upon hearing my name. He could not believe his ears. He was shocked to the core. He had expected me to be in some sort of miserable condition after quitting the job. He did not have the slightest idea that I would be standing in front of him as a much bigger and successful person than he could even imagine to be. On the first day, I gave a very motivational and professional speech regarding the work policies. I made it very clear that I would not tolerate any sort of non-serious attitude from any of the employees, but I also ensured them that they would not be overburdened and they would get paid according to their efforts. I also fired my ex-boss in front of everyone after exposing him for the fraud that he was. My ex-boss just fell to my feet and began to beg me not to fire him. He accepted all his deeds and said that he had gotten the job because of nepotism, which was the reason that he was unable to run the company. He was begging in front of everyone. Therefore, I decided to take this chance to humiliate him even further. I told him that he was not capable enough to work at the company and I could only allow him to work as a sweeper. I had expected him to walk out at that humiliation, but turned out that he was more desperate than I had thought. He immediately agreed to be the sweeper. From that day, I began to work really hard to drag the company out of the problems that it had fallen into. I created a network of loyal employees and I made sure to make them feel comfortable and wanted at their workplace. Everyone was tired of being mistreated previously and I wanted not to make the same mistakes, even though there was a lot to work on. I did not make anyone overwork or give extra hours. I let them have their weekends to relax as I did not want them to be exhausted or drained. In return, I got immense effort from everyone. Emma made sure to keep letting me know the inside scoop as she was one of the employees. All the responses that I got from her were positive ones. She assured me that I was going about the correct way, and everyone at the company was more than satisfied to work under me. I realized that working at that company had taught me a lot of things. I had a better insight regarding the policies that I wanted to adopt. I used my experience to avoid the things that I had a problem with as a worker. Things are going really well. As for my ex-boss, he is working as a sweeper. It is interesting to know that not a single person at the company feels a hint of sympathy or pity for him. He had made everyone's life miserable, and so everyone believed that it was good riddance, and he was reaping what he had sown himself. I was happy about the fact that I had finally gotten the revenge that I had yearned for. I never spoke to him about the past things again. I felt that there was no need to. He was paying for everything already, and he did not need to be tortured further. I personally like the step that OP has taken here. I mean, I clearly agree with anyone who believes that people like OP's boss don't deserve second chances, but this is the best way for OP to see his boss humiliated and be satisfied with all the pain he has experienced at the hands of his boss. What do you think, guys? I find it hilarious to think how embarrassing it must be for the boss. LOL. Update 5. Hi, I just wanted to update you about some recent events. The company was doing really well financially and all our customers were satisfied. However, I kept hearing about how my ex-boss was still saying things behind my back, indicating that maybe he had not learned his lesson. But I had no time to look into the whereabouts of an employee who is merely a sweeper. Most of the company's stuff was now handled by my employees, yet the one thing I never compromised on was the monthly audit. On the last weekend of every month, irrespective of my busy schedule, I would sit down with my laptop and go through all the sales and purchases to check for any kind of suspicious activity. It was one of these weekends when I sat down extremely tired because of my back-to-back traveling and meetings. As now, I was really close to expanding my business in multiple cities. I was almost done when all of a sudden, I noticed something that was enough for me to forget all of my tiredness and sit upright. There was something wrong with the sales report. I could see obvious evidence of data manipulation and internal sabotage as the total revenue that had been calculated clearly lacked some of the sales that we had made. Thanks to the brilliant software engineers we had hired years ago to make an effective system where every employee had access to the data inventory, however, any editing done by any of the employees would show their name to anyone who is made admin. I immediately logged in with my admin account, and to my utmost shock, most of the unusual activities and changes made to the inventory records were done using my ex-boss's ID. In an attempt to sabotage our sales and show a decreased revenue than the actual one, he deleted and edited the amount of money and payments received. It was an alarming situation as getting access to the company's sales report meant he had also access to the confidential information of clients that at no cost could be disclosed. I immediately changed the access settings to admin only, making sure that no one gets access to the company's data until the matter is resolved. Moreover, I also wrote a cyber report myself with the history and evidence of thefts this man had committed, and the next day, I handed it over to cybersecurity department. He was immediately arrested and fined, and I was assured that strict action would be taken. I also made sure that no other ex-employee or anyone in the future who decides to leave this company can have access to the company's data, and that their IDs are immediately taken back once they resign. Thankfully, because of my monthly audit policy, the theft was recognized soon and no harm was done to the company. Otherwise, it would have led us to losing clients and maybe facing lawsuits as well. At John124. Hi Jacob. First of all, I am really glad that you detected all the changes in time for serious action to be taken, and that no harm to the company was done. I am familiar with all the hard work and struggles you went through in order to achieve what you have today. Hence, you have learned a big lesson here. Not everyone deserves a second chance, and yes, some people are capable of exploiting and harming you even after the favors you have given them. If I had been in your place, I would have done the same and reported him to the cybersecurity department for immediate arrest. Please make sure that he isn't released soon, and in the future, please be extra careful. At Sylvia92. Hi Jacob, I have read your entire story. I must say that you are really lucky to have caught him before any serious harm was done. However, I think that getting him arrested was too much, as he had nothing more to lose. Getting him fired and maybe some sort of fine would have been enough. I wish you all the best in the future, especially in your expanding business. It can be tough managing it in different cities, but with an experience like yours, I'm sure no one can do it better. All's well when it ends well. I am happy for OP. In the end, the boss really got what he deserved. As I said, people like him don't deserve second chances, and he proved that I was right.